This episode of the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast is brought to you by Vesperio. Vesperio's Performance Academy offers custom-tailored solutions for service advisors and leaders. With all the technological advancements in AI that seem to be coming online daily, so have the discussions concerning how we as humans will fit into this brave new world of ones and zeros. What about the loss of human connection? What unintended consequences are we just not seeing? And what jobs will be eliminated? And while these are all legitimate concerns, the fact remains that AI is here. And it is also true that in this moment, we can use these new technologies to our advantage in order to create better experiences for our fellow humans, especially in our fixed ops departments. And to quote a lyric from an Andrew Bird song, "Don't let the human factor fail to be a factor." And Brandon Nixon and Update Promise, a technology company, have taken that sentiment to heart by focusing on helping managers at dealerships to become better leaders with the end game of a better customer experience in mind. In this episode of the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast, we talk about the biggest complaints that customers have in their dealership experience and how technology coupled with great people is the solution.
My name is Brandon Nixon. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Update Promise.
Okay, Brandon, if you just want to do a brief intro.
For sure. Yeah, my name is Brandon Nixon. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Update Promise. And for those of you who don't know who Update Promise is, we are a consumer experience engagement platform focused solely on the fixed operations departments. Coming into this side of the business, we quickly realized that average stores are utilizing anywhere from 3 to sometimes 6 different vendors in service, which becomes convoluted, and guess who suffers? The customer, right? So at Update Promise, our vision has always been to listen to our dealers, support our dealers, and ultimately create the best customer experience so that we can, as an industry as a whole, overcome that objection of, dealers are too expensive and they're not a good experience, right? So we want, when customers show up to the service department, they choose to not go anywhere else and they have the best experience. So it's been a journey. We've been in business since 2009 and we've fallen on our face plenty of times and learned a lot. But I will tell you, those mistakes we've made over the years put us to where we're at today. And I'm really excited about the direction the industry is going, the direction that the OEMs are going, as well as the dealers adopting more into the technology that's ultimately focusing on the customer and not just on their internal process, which of course is important. But again, building that all-in-one consumer experience platform is really our specialty that we focus on.
Do you want to talk about how you give your background and how I know you were in the collision game, and then up to Update Promise, maybe?
Yeah, for sure. I'm born and raised in automotive, and actually, we grew Update Promise out of our own collision center. We were actually trying to solve the problem of customers not being updated enough about what's going on with their vehicle, right? Biggest pain point still today that customers complain about. And so we designed Update Promise as an automated communication component to fix our collision center. We got the attention of the insurance carriers around the nation, which really launched us from just our peers using our tool to, at one point, we had 15,000 automotive collision centers around the nation mandated and utilizing our platform for communication, surveys, follow-ups, and even online payments for customers. And then back in 2015, 2016 is when we transitioned into the fixed operations side of the business for new car franchises. And that's where a lot of our collision centers were either owned or associated by dealers just came to us and said, look, you guys are family based. You guys are rocking it in the collision space. We know that you can help to transform and become a standard in the dealership service side of the business. So we came in, and like I said before, we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. We thought it'd be a simple flip. Great. We've kicked butt on the collision side, and quickly learned that on the dealership side, a lot of things are convoluted. There's a lot of programs that they're using. And the cool part I will say about what we've done with this transition from collision over to the dealership space is everything that we provide was built, designed, and developed by us. So our goal is to make that process from the the technician, to the parts department, to the advisor, to that end consumer as smooth as possible, right? I always like to say we don't Frankenstein our tools. We didn't go purchase an MPI. We didn't go purchase a appointment scheduler, but truly listen to our dealers and develop side by side with them to actually have a process that's going to be fluid from start to finish for that customer experience. So it's been a long journey, but I will say very blessed to see where we're at today and to see the dealers actually adopting at a level that the industry, I don't think, ever expected, especially with videos and photos. I know videos and photos have been a huge push in the last couple of years, and the data we've seen has just been unbelievable in terms of the return. And there's even a little bit of twist on that information that I'm sure I could share with you guys as well.
Yeah, we're going to get into that information. I want to sidestep just for a moment, and,
Sure.
and we're not going to stay in collision, but I did have 13 years in the aftermarket crash parts business. And I want to say I saw a headline, but I didn't read the story.
Yeah.
What is the future of the independent collision shop? Is it getting stronger or weaker?
It's hard to say, right? Obviously, we're not as heavily into that business right now. We are moving, further deep into there. But I would say it's become increasingly more difficult for an independent collision center out there. And the reason for that is you do have these large conglomerates that have purchased up and swallowed up a lot of these smaller mom and pop shops, which have, moved out. And the insurance carriers have these really tight relationships with these large automotive groups and conglomerates that it becomes a little bit more difficult if you're a small shop and you're having to deal with 20 different DRP programs and trying to identify, how do I meet the standards of Geico while meeting the same standards at State Farm, right? So those independent, more smaller shops, what we've seen over the years, if you can do what you're doing and not deal with the DRP, that's our biggest advice. If you could be successful and customers trust you and they actually come to you and are loyal, you're going to be a lot more successful and not have the overwhelming stress of having to balance all the different requirements of what you're going to get paid here, what you're going to get paid there, the time that's allocated. So the industry has definitely transformed since even when we were in the business. We got out of the collision business, like I said, back in 2016. So it's changed a lot in the last 8 years from what we've seen.
Yeah. Going to dealerships, and the episode that came out before this one was my personal experience at a local Toyota dealership. And it's really cool, man, doing this podcast to see, obviously, when you're dealing with repairs and things that are not quick fixes, but how dealerships are using technology to Amazon the process as much as you can. Like I said, it's, and I had like the best experience. Like I said, I was in the collision game, and I dealt with independents and I dealt with dealerships as well. And just like so many, I stayed away from the dealerships if I could. I just as a consumer, man, I got the best. I mean, it seems like it was planned, that episode, but it was just a commercial for them because I was so impressed and surprised. And the main thing was the video MPI. I got the first one ever that I have received, and I have a tough looking truck, and it was up on the rack and it looked cool. And it was just, it's awesome to see dealerships going this route, and it works, man. As a consumer, like it works. Like I'm going back to the dealership for my Toyota long after the warranty's done.
Well, and if you think about it, you're a car guy, right? You grew up in automotive. So to your point earlier, you in some points, you knew a little bit of the aspects as to why you weren't going to show up to the dealer, right? Imagine the new generations coming in, my generation and younger that aren't car people, right?
Yeah.
They don't know the ins and outs of fixing their vehicle or fixing big issues, right? All they know is they have a vehicle that they're paying a good amount each month and they need it to work for them. So when things go wrong, they need that process to be smooth, right? So when they show up to a dealership, that generation, that younger generation, what do they expect? Everything is right here on their phone, right? Right at their fingertips, no matter what they do. You'd mentioned Amazon. That Amazon type experience is exactly what we should be striving for because that's what our customers expect. So that's really been a big focus and why when people ask what's Update Promise, I don't say that we're a fixed operation solution, end to end. I start with we're a consumer experience engagement platform because that's where the industry is going to have to go and is going because it's what the customer's expectations are.
Yeah. So what are you hearing? What are dealerships? You said, you listen and your company's based on listening to what the needs are. What's going on the ground?
I think the good part is I think we've really seen a shift from the dealership struggling to find quality service advisors to now them being able to move like BDC agents and even sales individuals into service and very quickly pick up being a service advisor because they are focused on having tools that are more intuitive and easy for somebody to pick up, right? One of our groups that we work with, the executive director says it all the time. He's like, if I can take somebody who worked in retail and had great customer service, I can bring them into service now and they can pick up and start working that job very quickly. Compared to in the past, we had to beg people to be service advisors and move into this. But now it's a more simple process. It's more fluid. And as long as you can be a good customer experience individual, you can do well in this side of the business. Of course, you got to know a little bit more about automotive and you got to learn that, but it's not as difficult as it was before because now we've got the technology that leads that experience from step to step. I will say it's been what we've heard a lot lately is the OEMs and the dealerships are becoming a little bit more unified on let's focus on how do we get that customer into the dealership as seamless as possible, right? I know we talk about inspections and videos and things like that, but scheduling is the number one complaint. Wait time is the number one complaint in 2024. So I've seen OEMs put more initiatives on reducing the amount of time it takes customers to schedule, right? Properly building those schedules that align properly to the actual technician schedule and what they're doing, which I think is ultimately going to end up in a better, experience because now you're not getting a lot of customers complaining that, hey, I booked an appointment, I showed up, but my oil change still took me 3 hours, right? That's what we need to solve in automotive in order to make sure we don't have defectors going to the independent shops along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. You said you had some cool data, man. Did you want to get into some of that?
So yeah, talking about videos and photos a little bit. Part of what we track, and it's been interesting to see as we review this with dealerships, the big push was video. Go through, take a video. You just explained, right? You had the best experience because you're able to see your car, see exactly what's going on, and you built trust with that dealer. Statistically, what we've seen is it's not just about videos. It's also about videos and photos. And the reason I mention that is part of what we do is we track the closed dollars per repair order per each category. If you only took a video and sent it to the customer, or you only took a photo, or on this repair order, you took a video and you took additional photos, right? And so we track each of those. And statistically, what we've seen is when you take videos and photos, you're seeing a 25% higher increase in dollars per repair order compared to just taking a video only. And I think part of the reason for that is the industry's changing to where, if you remember, when we had paper MPIs, there was that pencil whip, right? We'd always say the technician went through, they draw a line down, they pencil whipped, right? Mm-hmm. Technicians are smart. They're starting to go, great, this video, they're just checking the box from my management team telling me just take a video. They're pencil whipping videos, right? So we're pushing our team and our dealers to say, hey, not only focus on the video, but take individual photos of those recommendations you have, right? So that they can actually zoom in closer and see exactly what's going on and get more detailed information. And ultimately, when you do that, it statistically shows customers are spending more money.
So it's the same. It's almost like a screen grab of what was already in the video. So in a sense, it's a redundancy. It's the same inspection, correct?
Correct. But what I will say, what's important about the video is the relationship, right? And I'm sure you felt that same exact way. So the moment you got it, you instantly went, this is not the service advisor calling me to sell me something because you know that they have a commission to pay plan to sell you, right? This is the technician who's got grease on his hands, who's actually working on my car, showing me and speaking to me about what's going on. The video accomplishes that right away. You build the relationship, right? And with those photos, now I'm getting into those details even further. So I, as a consumer, can make a more accurate decision on whether I'm moving forward with those, right? And be transparent on the price. How many times I explain to stores where they're like, hey, I just want to take a video, get it out to the customer right away. And I instantly will stop them and go, sounds good. That's not a bad process. But what about when they get that video and the customer goes, well, how much is it going to cost me? Right. And if they have a price on their phone, is that going to be accurate? We want to make sure that that is to the penny cent accurate so that they know exactly what they're paying for. They trust that you're not going to tell them, hey, we'll get it done. It's going to be around this. Then they show up and it's a completely different price. When they can look at it on their phone and have that Amazon type experience and just go accept, decline, accept, you're talking about a completely different experience that they've probably never experienced in a dealership before in their life.
Okay, so does that go? So like with mine, which my truck's new. This was my first. Yeah. This was my first. And so thankfully there was nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
And I have 2 years paid for by Toyota. I mean, I paid for it when I bought the truck actually,
yeah.
but maybe it would have been different had the truck been 5 years old and have 150,000 miles on it. But the technician just sent that directly to me, the video MPI. So what you're saying is that would go, because the technician doesn't know the cost of the things, right?
Correct. So there's two aspects of it, right? It all depends on the process you have at the dealership and the technology that you have at your fingertips. Theoretically, that MPI could go from the technician directly out to the customer and have all the pricing, right? If you have the tools built in, something that we do a little bit unique is we have pricing guide data built in, right? So that technician goes through and marks up red on an exhaust manifold because there's a crack on it, takes a video of it. Are your tools that you're using intuitively grabbing that VIN, recognizing he selected an exhaust manifold, and then instantly quoting out the exact parts, the labor time there, so that he can send it directly to the customer. But the beauty is from the customer's perspective, like you said, you got your video, everything probably looked good, right? And so you were impressed by that. But somebody who has a crack on their exhaust manifold, now they're able to see that video, see what's going on and go, great, here's the price. Boom, I'm going to approve it. How much quicker is that going to move the process in the dealership of you getting an approval like that compared to, oh, I got the video, and then you have to text or call the advisor and go, hey, I saw that. How much is that going to cost me? And now you've got this back and forth dialogue where you could have approved it right away when you got that video. So there's two sides of it. We have stores that they send them to the parts department. Parts departments review, make adjustments, then get it out to the customer. But ultimately, if you have the technology at your fingertips where it intuitively does it and accurately quotes it out right away, you're saving a tremendous amount of time where it can go from the technician directly out to the customer.
Yeah, I would imagine that's a lot of moving parts as far as like the technology, because again, going back to the crash parts days, just like with anything, the cost to the customer would change based on what it costs us to get it. And, of course, all our parts were coming from Taiwan. So I'm sure that was probably highly fluctuating, but, you take inflation or whatever. And so I don't know how often parts go up or down, the actual parts, not the labor. But you would have to think just especially in the economy we've had lately, that there's some fluctuations there. So, accuracy would be paramount, right?
For sure. And that's the beauty of some of the platforms that we partner with and the direct connections with the OEMs, right? When an OEM makes an adjustment to a part and we're having that update within hours or days, depending on the OEM, and each OEM is different, right? So that it's as accurate as possible and you're getting it out to the customer as quickly as possible. And so to your point, though, if you've got an OEM that's updating things, once a month and it's not as accurate, that experience could be different. Maybe you do need to send it over to the parts department for them to take a look at it, source it, get everything put together, and then get it out to the customer. So it all depends. And some OEMs are better than others. You'd mentioned Toyota and Lexus. They've been one of the best that we've worked with and seen as well. They are really pushing on that customer experience side, as well as giving the dealers the information and the data that they need to operate their business at a more efficient level. So they work more hand in hand, and you see it from the buy-in of the dealers. The dealers are instantly going, okay, Toyota's gone through this. They've really thought it out. I'm moving forward with this new process here. Instead of, certain other OEMs, there may be lack of trust there. So we're seeing more and more OEMs move to that direction of, hey, how do we make it as seamless as possible with getting more APIs and data passed back and forth between third-party providers like ourselves as well.
That's wild. What besides, just help me understand what you guys do outside of, so the video MPI, that's your standalone program, am I correct?
Yeah. So we handle the customer from start to finish. So from scheduling to actually checking them in on a tablet, which will open up the repair order in the DMS, which we do for all DMSs. And then that actually transitions into the experience within the dealership, where the inspection process, the parts department, service advisors getting information out. And then where we finish the experience is regarding customers being able to pay online, get communicated about what's going on with their car, and then followed up after they leave service so that we can retain that customer for life. So it's been great, the fact that we have the complete experience, because now we can predict through AI technology as well what behaviors from the customer and the advisor lead to a positive customer experience at the end, right? One statistic I'll throw out there, and it still hasn't adopted in the industry as high as that we would have thought, but paying online for your service, right? A lot of stores are offering it, but if you ask a location, what's the percentage of your customers paying online? They'll tell you it's less than 8%, right? It's a very small percentage of customers. But statistically, what we've seen is when a customer does pay online, you're like 99.6% that customer is going to be happy at the end of the experience. So that's another area that, as we build more trust with the customers by providing a more transparent experience from scheduling to check-in to NPI, we'll start to see adoption of online payments go up. And we've seen it over the years. It used to be less than 5%. Now for us, we're seeing upwards of 10, 12. Even I just reviewed one of my locations. They're at 26% of all of their repair orders are paying online. But that's a dealer who preps the customer on the process, explains to the customer the value of paying online. And those sorts of behaviors, right? When you explain to the customer on what to expect, you're going to result in a higher experience and more dollars per repair order as well.
The Vesperio Performance Academy offers custom-tailored solutions for service advisors and leaders. We allow you to select exactly what you want based on your store's needs. After taking our customized learning path survey, we use those results to tailor a learning path specifically for you. You'll have access to our complete learning library, and you can test what you've learned with our knowledge checks. And for managers, our easy-to-use admin dashboard allows you to easily see current activity from your team and access reports quickly. Vesperio's Performance Academy promotes advisor and manager engagement and communication by including the manager after every concept an advisor completes. Vesperio also allows users the ability to add custom dealership assets and processes that all live in one location. To get a look inside the Performance Academy or to get your team started today, go to Vesperio.com. That's Visperio.com. I guess in the automotive service industry, phones are always going to be, there are times when you need to talk with someone. But, just how, say, we've seen it with text, how generationally, man, like Gen Z, and you see it in all aspects, they don't want to talk on the phone, man. And they want to schedule online. They want to do, and like I said, I guess, a BDC or a call center or something, someone answering the phones is probably going to always be a necessity in that industry. But it's changing, man, so much where Gen Z doesn't want to talk to anybody.
Correct.
So are you seeing those trends or technologies coming down the pike that are trying? Again, that's that Amazon.
So I've got actual statistics on it. So 8 years ago, when I dove in myself into this side of the business full time, And we were at that point mainly focused on our communication tool, which is our texting and our email communication tool with customers. Nationwide opt-out rates for texting 8 years ago were upwards of 18 to 20%. So 18 to 20% of customers were opting out of text messaging because they didn't want it, right? The industry was changing as well as the generation, right? So 8 years ago, now we're starting to see those Gen Zs work in where they're actually dealing with their, vehicles and servicing with dealerships, right? Today, the nationwide opt-out rate for us with text messaging is 0.8%. So just in a short period of 8 years, you went from 18 to 20% down to 0.8% of opting out of text messaging. To your point, it's the preferred method, right? One advice I always give dealerships as well, service advisors, it's hard to explain, especially to a service advisor who's been at a dealership for so long, someone that's been there for 20 plus years and has always been a top performer. When you start utilizing technology and service and you begin texting with that customer, if that customer text messages you a question and you pick up the phone and call them, you just failed. You just told that customer, I'm ignoring your preference, right? If they wanted to talk to you on the phone, they would have called you, but they sent you a text message. And that should tell you enough that, great, I'm going to start communicating, and you'll probably get quicker responses because they could sit in a meeting just like this, look down at their phone, respond to a text message, and not interrupt their day. Where a phone call, I'd have to pause you right now. I'd have to walk out the room, jump on the phone, have my conversation, and come back. So the data shows, to your question, from 18 to 20% down to less than 1% opting out. It's a huge transformation throughout the industry that we've seen.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. I'm Gen X. Okay. I'm long in the tooth, man. I'm getting on up there, which I think is the best generation because we know what it's like to be without the internet. And then we are also young enough to take all this stuff and we're not old men yelling at clouds yet. Right. But even texting in my mind has changed to where I used to be put off by it, just not in dealing with a retail business or whatever, just it's so impersonal. And now I don't feel that it's not cold anymore, especially, when you can use an emoji to
build a relationship and show that you're human, right?
Yeah. Cause the words still come across as cold. I'm kind of a right, so words mean things, and then, they can come off cold, but you put a smiley face behind it, and it's just like, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Smiley face. It means everything, man. It's wild. And this is a little different, obviously. And like I said, because of the intricacies of having your car repaired, depending on what needs to be done, you're going to need more detail from time to time. But like, I go to the barber now, man, and I schedule it on an app. And I don't have to call and hope somebody answers. And even that is just, it's what I'm used to now. And
well, it allows you to plan, right? Because like you said, when you schedule at your barber, it pulls right up. You know exactly when they're available and that you can come in and get things done, right? And that's one thing that I think the industry with automotive service is starting to shift to. We're at like the cusp of it. Some people do it well, but majority of the industry does it bad. Is, the customer goes to schedule. And again, like I said, the data in 2024, number one complaint we see from consumers is appointments and wait times at dealerships, right? So now we're starting to see that technology work with the dealerships, and the dealerships actually having to analyze their current productivity to align those schedules so that when a customer shows up, their vehicle is being worked on, right? Too often do you come in for a basic oil change, they check you in, they tell you to go wait in the waiting room, and they don't touch your car for an hour and a half. That's just a reality, right? That's the reason a customer's going to Jiffy Lube or to Meineke, because when they show up and they have an appointment, boom, they know that their oil change is going to be done in 30, 45 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Now, there are caveats to that. With a new car franchise, we're doing an OEM inspection, right? We're being thorough on that vehicle. So you can expect it to take a little bit more time, but at the same time, it shouldn't take you 3 hours to do an oil change, especially on newer vehicles. And that's the type of data we're having our AI analyze, is finding out on vehicles that have less than 20,000 miles, what's the time it's taking for completions of them coming in for their normal routine maintenance, right? Your Toyota, where your first 5 services are free, what's the time of completion there? Because if it starts exceeding over an hour and a half to 3 hours, that dealership's got a process problem and they've got a schedule problem. It's not the barbershop experience that you had.
Right. Yeah, I will say that I didn't even time it. I had a lot going on that day, but I got it was under an hour, and
Yep.
they had it up on the rack and was doing all the things. You may not be able to speak to this. I just thought of this talking about the customer experience, and earlier in this podcast, this multi-point inspection podcast, there was a lot of buzz about AI is the first line of defense on the phones. And, there's a company in particular that I interviewed, and man, it seemed really cool to kind of take the load off the other things. So if you just need to schedule something, is that still, is that going to have longevity? Is that something you're still seeing? Do customers like it?
So, okay. This is honestly, it's ironic that you pull it up because I just had an hour and a half long meeting with one of my customers yesterday that uses our phone AI tool. So we actually provide a phone AI tool called Harmony, which does exactly what you explained, where a customer calls in, they say they want to schedule an appointment, and Harmony can take them through that full scheduling process, right? Now, mind you, I always like to throw this out as a caveat. Because I sell that platform doesn't mean I'm a big fan of AI, right? I'm the first person that when I pick up the phone and I hear an automated system on there, I'm clicking 0,000 times saying, get me to an operator, right? Because I want to deal with the human if I'm choosing to make a phone call. That's just me personally. And I think there's a lot of consumers that are out there. But I will tell you, since we launched Harmony at the beginning of the year. Since we launched it at the beginning of the year, the data has proven me wrong. We're seeing an enormous amount of appointments being scheduled without a human needing to interact at all, right? When a customer calls in and they need to just schedule a quick appointment, how many times is a customer waiting on the phone, or it's after hours, right? I've had the experience myself where I was sitting in bed with my wife watching TV and I'm like, shoot, I meant to schedule my appointment, and I'm going on the web page to go schedule myself, right? And I'm not having to deal with the human. If they choose to call in, we've seen AI for us schedule an appointment in 58 seconds or even less. Now we're reducing wait times, getting customers in. I have some of our stores that have large BDC departments that handle inbound phone calls. And our Harmony AI tool is scheduling at a minimum 2 times the amount of appointments of any other BDC rep out there. Now, the hard part is we do run into BDC reps will become threatened by that platform, right? Because they're going, shoot, is this AI going to displace me as, an individual at this dealership? However, what it changed at these BDC departments is you're no longer fielding those inbound calls saying, hey, I'd like to schedule an appointment. Those are being handled and they're coming in. Now you're able to divert your efforts towards outbound calls, which even helps BDC reps because they're paid on outbound calls. That's what the pay plans are based off of. They're not paid highly on these inbound calls, a customer calling in.
Yeah.
So it gives them their time back and allows the dealer to schedule even more appointments because they can focus on that. But to your point, do you see this adopting and continuing to adopt? I think it's so early on that we're seeing detractors of AI at some point at certain dealers, right? Cost cutting, economy came down a little bit. You know what? I'm just going to handle with the BDC department I have. I don't want to pay for this other platform. That's definitely prevalent, but the stores that are utilizing it and getting the benefit out of it, it's been phenomenal to see that, especially when you combine the online scheduled appointments and you combine the customers who schedule through the Harmony AI, and it accounts for more than 55% of the appointments scheduled at the dealership. That's without a human interacting at all.
Yeah.
So, and it all depends on the generation. Again, you've got Gen Zs that grew up with automated phone, handling that with everything they do. So when they call a dealership, it's not uncommon for them to go through that process.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of with you. Just in general, I hate a phone tree, but again, man, it's kind of like the kiosks that are being used. Being able to call anytime, and just like with the text, how it seems so impersonal. And, I could see us moving that direction. We just have to acclimate to it, I guess.
So one of the hidden benefits that actually came out of the AI was identifying customers who abandoned the scheduling process, right? Today, when you're talking about an online scheduling widget, if a customer goes to schedule an appointment and they abandon off, depending on the tool you use, for using our platform, we give you that information, but majority of them, you lose that customer, right? You don't have their information. You can't follow up with them. You can't find out because they went 2 steps in and then abandoned off your website. With the Harmony AI platform, when they call in, if they start the process, we already have their phone number. We have the information on that customer. And great, they didn't schedule the appointment. Now we can alert the BDC department to pick up the phone and go, hey, it looks like you were scheduling but bounced off. Is there any way that I can help you with that? So it allows the dealership to capture more customers and not miss the majority who called in to your call tree and bounced off and you never heard from them again, or you didn't know who called in, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lead generator almost.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, that's great. Man, it's a brave new world, you know it? And I kind of like it. It scares me a little bit, but I kind of like it, technology.
It's change is different. I always say, I will say that the one thing that will need to be consistent in automotive, we talk about all this technology that's great, that's helping to automate a lot of the process. The one thing that'll always need to be there is we need solid management in dealerships to drive accountability throughout the entire experience. And the stores that have solid management in there are the ones who are the top performers. It just bar none. When you have good leadership, the rest of the team follows there. So that's one area that we're really wanting to start focusing on, is how can we help our managers at the dealerships become better performers in their leadership roles. And I know we're a technology company. Why are we focusing on that? But the more that those leaders are more developed inside of the service department and have the data at their fingertips to hold their team accountable, the better the whole entire experience is going to be there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, if you look at it as more of an accompaniment instead of a replacement, like you were talking about the AI thing. Yeah. There's a lyric from an Andrew Bird song. This is "Don't let the human factor fail to be a factor."
Yeah.
But if that initial getting them in the dealership, right, is you take care of that with the online scheduling, the AI, if you like it, thing, and then get them in there, and like you said, don't take 3 hours. There's where the human factor comes in.
Yep.
And if Generation Z, and I'm painting with broad strokes here, obviously, but if Generation Z doesn't like to talk to people, if all that is done by technology on the front end to make if you think about it, if all that was a slog to get through, you're kind of probably going to treat that person that when you finally get to talk to a person, you're already on a bad footing, and you're already going to be grumpy going in as a consumer. So if that takes care of all that, and then if you're Gen Z and you want limited access to human beings, if you had a good experience up till then you can handle the 5 minutes that it takes to talk to a person because everything's been smooth up to that point.
What you bring up a good point. One of the top complaints, number 3 on the top 10 list that we did an analysis on of customers complaining about service departments, is staff being rude or not having a good relationship with staff, right? The human element is so crucial. Everything can be right when they show up, before they show up to the dealership, and they could be happy. But if the moment they get face to face with you, if you don't build your people to be able to handle customer service at a next level there, it's going to ruin the whole entire experience, right? So I agree with you. The human element of the service department is the most crucial aspect of it all, right?
Yeah.
We just need to have the technology to enable our leaders as well as our service advisors, technicians, to operate more efficiently and be able to focus more on the customer experience, because they're not bogged down with all of this admin stuff that they need to get handled. Let's let the technology make you efficient there so that we can improve the customer's experience.
You've talked about this list. Did you want to run through the 10 things?
So I won't run through it because it's a long list, but I know we had talked about it. I really appreciate you putting me on here. And we actually, from Update Promises side, started the Service Lounge podcast. And it was based off of, honestly, you've been an inspiration based off what we've seen and other podcasts that we've seen out there on really grabbing what the customers are saying and acting on it, right? Putting action items on it. That's why we call it the service lounge. Is what are those customers in the service lounge talking about your dealership? And so this podcast, we just released a podcast about a month ago regarding the top 10 customer complaints that we've seen in the service department. And we got that data from millions of consumers in 2024, because after they leave service, we follow up the same day of delivery, asking them, were you satisfied? And then we allow the customer to leave a comment, right? So we had our AI do a trend analysis on all of those millions of comments in 2024. And at the end of the third quarter, we said, what are the top complaints, right? And again, like I said before, number one was scheduling and wait time. Number three was, being rude. Another one inside of there is just not being kept informed about what's going on with their vehicle, right? Which we know has always been a problem out there. So I highly encourage for anybody who's listening on, and I can share it out with you, Brandon, as well, for you to be able to share. But we did a full case study analyzing those top 10 customer complaints. And it's something that all of us as the industry should learn about and listen to. It's okay that customers are complaining. That's how we grow. That's how we learn and improve as an industry.
Let's talk about the service lounge real quick. How did that, what was the impetus of that, and how much buy-in did it take from you to, were you
I didn't want to do it. Okay. I'll tell you that I'm not the type of person. I know that more people are seeing my face out there because I'm doing the service lounge and jumping on things like this with you. I'm partaking in more like panels and things like that. I'm not the type of person to go out there and just put my face and jump on these things. I don't actually enjoy doing it, but I will tell you, it's been phenomenal to get the feedback since we started it. We've grown tremendously we started 5 months ago. And we've got a great amount of followers, a lot of good feedback, and a lot of people in the industry wanting to participate, just so that we can learn from what the customers are saying and how we can act on it. So it took a little while. We'll say a little bit of planning and a little bit of, how do we get into this? Starting up a podcast and running it, the production of it is a little bit difficult there. But we always said, even if we stumble, the content we're putting out should be valuable. And as long as we have the right content on the customer experience, people will actually engage and listen. And it's exactly what we've seen so far. So we're still learning. We're still getting there, but it's been a good journey. We were just at a large dealer group event down in Texas, and I wasn't personally there, but my team was, and my team said they got approached 10 different times. Hey, we've seen Brandon and your team all over LinkedIn with the service lounge and doing this. And I'm like, great. That means it's working, right? It means the people that we don't even know are talking about it, and that we're providing some value out there to the industry. So I just hope that we can continue to build on that and continue to provide more feedback and value to each dealership who listens on.
Yeah, man. Well, I've listened to it, and you may not like it, but you're a natural at it, and you have a good clear voice for it, So yeah. Because I'm an audio guy. I pick up on those things, right?
Yeah.
I like it. Brandon, is there anything that I didn't ask you or that you didn't talk about that you want to?
I'm not going to pull there's not anything that comes to mind thing, but yes, the one thing I will say that I'm really excited for with 2025 is the innovation and the new processes that have already started to get adopted. And what I mean by that is talking about videos and photos. It's great to see the industry is adopting that at a much higher level than they were, 2, 3, 4 years ago. Now, how do we make it better, right? How do we utilize the AI technology and things like that to improve that process with captioning, noise cancellations, intuitive recommendations? So those are some of the things that we're working on where, hey, you as a consumer selected this, customers who did this at your vehicle mileage, your vehicle specifically, other things are recommended and often chosen, right? So that we can make it more intuitive to more of that Amazon type experience that you had mentioned earlier. It's great to see more people are talking about the customer experience because throw out a statistic, and again, we talked about it on our service lounge, but for 8 years in a row, automotive has been the number one industry with customer complaints. Number one. Just came out. The study just came out in September this year. Automotive is still the number one complaint over insurance claims, over scams and thefts, things like that. Automotive has always been number one. So I want to change that. I want to make sure that we don't handle it for another 9-10 years where we're number one. I want to make sure that at Update Promise, we can be part of the change where automotive becomes more adopted and people don't have that stigma that they're too expensive, the wait's too long, and it's just a bad experience, right? We want to make sure that automotive, people are excited to bring their vehicle to a dealership because in the end, when sales start to decline, people are going to buy vehicles based off the experience they have in that service department. That's going to be their decision factor. I truly believe that. So I'm looking forward to continuing to innovate and build to improve that over the years.
Awesome. I'm probably going to rearrange this, but a question, and you may not be able to answer it, but something that just hit me. There's a whole movement, especially this podcast is one of them, that where dealerships are trying to get back that business from the independents, and I don't know how exactly backing from the OEs work and how much money they can use to buy these technologies. But if independents kind of had a leg up, let's just say with the 3-hour oil change, for example, are they implementing a lot of this technology just generally? Because you still, again, the human factor needs to be a factor. You still have to get your processes and your people right, because if they are getting the same technology you're back to where you started, right?
100%. I encourage any manager who's listening onto this, go take your vehicle for service at a Pep Boys. Go to a Meineke. Go get your vehicle serviced there and experience the technology they have. They already are having a lot of this technology that we're speaking about, right? Automotive service, we've been slow to adopt there, and the independents have gotten smart because you know what they're talking about? The number one referral that they get is new car franchises, the people who are defecting from new car franchises. You guys are the dealerships are the ones driving that business into the independents because they go, their family member goes, and then they go, oh, Meineke was a great experience. Look what I got on my phone. I got this video. I was able to click approve. It was smooth. I was in and out within an hour. When you speak that to your cousin at Thanksgiving coming up, they're going to change the way they think about getting their vehicle service when that light pops up on the dash, right? Yeah. So dealerships and new car franchises need to adopt quicker because the independents are moving just as quick, right? As well as we need to explain the value as to why you are getting your vehicle serviced at a dealership. When you write somebody up in the drive and you greet them with a tablet in your hand, you walk around the damage of their vehicle and you explain to them, because you're at a dealership, you're getting certified inspections, right? You're getting a proper inspection of every component that we from Toyota or we from Honda are specialized in inspecting, different from an independent store who's looking at every single vehicle and may not be specialized to that. So the more we can explain that value and then provide that elite customer experience through the technology, we're not going to lose those customers, right? But to your question, independents are doing it now. So if you're not doing it today, you're behind.
Right. Yeah. Cool, man. This has been great.
Well, I hope this is the type of information you wanted to talk about. So I get passionate about this. So I start running.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This was awesome. This episode was made possible thanks to a proud partnership with Vesperio, which provides tailored solutions to ignite automotive dealership fixed operations, performance, and profit.